So today's video, you're gonna learn how to never make another inside takeaway. And we see golfers every week struggling with this. We saw them all week this week, actually, and it's why it's on top of our minds right now. One of the first things that has to be done, okay? And let's just first show what an inside takeaway is for anyone wondering. It's just by shaft parallel, that club and or hands is inside behind you from a classic down the line view. The first culprit of this, or the first fix for this, is making sure your lead shoulder moves correctly.
If I set up to the ball here, and I'm gonna have Mike put his finger right there and keep it there without moving, and I'm gonna move. So I'll do the both good and the bad.
Okay.
So if I was to do the bad, and I see it more and more often lately, we do anyways, it's the turning of the body, making a turn, but I haven't let this shoulder move off Mike's hand at all. So it gets into kind of this position where I've tilted a little bit too much left. Now I got the club in what you would say a decent spot, but when that shoulder hangs this way, it sets you up for the rest of the backswing to not work quite efficiently.
We call this the hoisted takeaway, because if I do nothing other than just hoist my arm up from a down the line view, it'll look pretty good. We've seen guys that can have it look pretty good. Now, the reality of it makes the wrist bow and do all sorts of other things, but your body's out now.
I mean, we've talked about this before. If I just turn my shoulders level, when I bend forward, my feeling is that they're pretty level. They're not going to be,
right?
Because I'm already bent forward. But when we see people trying to take their left shoulder down too much, they cheat it early.
So they side crunch on the lead side here.
Exactly. They cheat it early, then start turning. Well, that puts them in kind of a steep position at the top of the swing, and a lot of times gets them into this like lifted arms, bowed wrists. So when they start down, it steepens the club a lot.
Right. So the fix for that, or the movement that should be happening, you see this with the best players in the world, is this shoulder's got to move across.
Yeah.
Now, we tell golfers all the time, don't feel like the shoulder goes down. Don't feel like it comes up. Neither one of those are good. Just like you said, let me have your club there.
Yeah.
So it's like a cross, right? Like you were just demonstrating. If I just rotate this around, we'll say this is my spine, this is my shoulder, this cross, right? Everybody gets that. If I just bend the cross forward, I'm still just rotating it 90 degrees to my spine.
It's down, but
that's going to move the shoulder on an arc,
Yes, right.
But I'm not trying to go this way and then turn. That's the problem.
That causes a lot of issues early in the backswing, and then you're trying to put the horse back in the barn the rest of the backswing.
Okay.
So that's number one. Now I'll make a point there too. Put your finger back there again real quick. This is where I think people lose track. They're like, oh, I'm gonna move off the ball if I do that. Well, not necessarily. It's changing the trajectory that the shoulder moves. This is the before, right? Mm-hmm. Watch my head though on the after. I can move my shoulder away from the hand without making a big shift off the ball. And that's the thing that the light bulb usually goes off. Oh, I see. It's just changing the direction I'm turning in to get the takeaway right.
Yeah, he could move off my hand there by just doing this.
Yeah.
All right, that flattens my shoulders. That's no good either.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not, you don't want to avoid one extreme by doing another extreme. You want to operate where good players operate.
Yeah, just a bread and butter motion. Exactly.
So it's here, and you know, if your head moves a little bit, you're not as flexible as you want to be. Your head can move a half a head, okay? A lot of great players do that, or it can not move very much at all. But the key point is I'm taking this shoulder, in my mind, over my trail foot, at least behind the golf ball. You see so many backswings that never get the shoulder behind the ball.
And higher than the ball. So if I make a normal, what is this, a 6? If I make a normal setup and put myself like this and just turn, the butt of my club is 3-4 feet outside the ball.
Yeah, the range, like if you're tall, I think the tallest player we have in the database is 6'4" professional, right? I'm 6'5". It's going to be the steepest just because we're taller.
Oh, especially the body proportions too. If you have to bend over forward more.
But steep is being out here versus 8-9 feet. We have players in the database that are 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", that have the club pointing 8 feet beyond the ball. Yeah. It's never pointing at the ball, ever.
Yeah, for me, I'm like 5'10" here, so if I did that, look how contorted that looks. And when I say that's a lot of times we'll say that's a steep backswing. Yes. The reason is, unless you pop out of it, you're going to normally kind of take the hands and the club out over the top.
Yeah, we see it all the time. Saw it all the time this week.
Yeah.
So the first key, again, is moving the shoulder across. Now, Let's talk about how much and how early, because we're just talking about the takeaway when the shaft's parallel. So let's have you set up again, Shaun.
Yeah, face on.
Yep, face on. So you're going to go to shaft parallel. Let's look about how much this happens. So you've created a good 6-8 inches there just by shaft parallel. Some of you aren't covering 6 to 8 inches in the entire backswing. Yeah.
That motion there, and you can see it almost like uncocks the wrist and bows it.
Yes.
And you might be able to do something else, but this is coming from stuff that we're seeing. What I like about these videos after the golf schools, we're seeing what's kind of going on in golfers' minds right now, because with the internet and videos they're watching all the time, and this is propping up more and more this way. So we're seeing all the problems that it causes.
And they're coming to golf schools because they're having trouble with this stuff.
Yeah.
So that's number one.
So come to a golf school.
So if the shoulder gets moving across, so this is where a lot of people kind of have a hard time wrapping it around their head. My tendency is already to get things too inside. Now I'm moving my shoulder more.
It's gonna make it worse.
And things go way more inside. Okay, we got you. No,
yeah.
All right. So there's a reason that's the case. And it's how so many golfers perceive what needs to happen with this lead wrist in the takeaway.
If you've been hoisting, like Mike was saying, you've kind of been cheating a good spot from down the line.
Correct.
So the first thing that's going to happen when you make a better pivot off the ball is most of the time you're going to be kind of like this,
right.
Especially if you've been told that you need to bow the wrist on the backswing.
Right.
That makes it even worse.
Just about all of this, I mean, if you've got like a John Rahm super weak grip, it won't be the case. But for most normal to strong grips, okay, neutral to strong grips, you have cup in your wrist at address. If I just drop this and side crunch down, the tendency is for it to kind of ulnar down.
It's the weight of the club, really.
And then the weight of the club swinging with the momentum. Now I've got quite a bit of bow there versus the cup where I started. All that's gone right at the beginning. So now if I just move my shoulder across and I'm still used to the same wrist conditions, now I'm super inside. So we got to address the next issue, and that's making sure you understand how the wrists work.
Yeah, so we do some work with hack motion now. A great tool. You can kind of measure what the wrists are doing during the swing.
Yeah, and a lot of you guys took advantage of the Black Friday deal, so this is going to make perfect sense for you when you start working on it.
Yeah, so if you make a better pivot and you're in here with a bowed wrist and the hands are inside, you have to train your arms and wrist. Let's just talk about the lead wrist to keep it simple. You have to train the lead wrist what to do here in this first part of the backswing. And a good rule of thumb is just kind of trying to maintain that same little cup you had in your grip at address, especially if you just have mid-body hands kind of neutral. You don't have them shoved out here, which is another whole takeaway issue.
Exactly right.
So get them mid-body, butt of the club pointer at your belt buckle, and feel like as you move the shoulder back, you just keep that kind of same little cup in there. Now I'm bent over at address, so that gets the club, slightly toe down here just from the amount of forward bend I have. But the kiss of death here would be to do this, and you definitely don't want to twist it open. It's just maintaining that same little cup as you move the shoulder across, and that gets it pretty much in line with the hands.
Right. And again, we like doing these things from the player perspective. Right, so if you just put yourself in your normal setup, and I don't have my butt of the club, but my belt buckle, I have it maybe first belt loop, like so somewhere middle body. You don't want it out here, like Shaun was saying. And if I get it in setup, now if I just raise up, okay, because this is super easy to see if you just put yourself in an easy position. So you can see the cup there from this face on camera. Now if I just turn to where the end of the takeaway would be, okay, I'll do it from down the line. I didn't need to do anything because I moved this shoulder.
Yeah, and the toe is basically straight up.
Yeah, well, it's straight up because I'm standing straight up. So now if I get in my golf posture, it's a little bit. It's not down here, and it doesn't need to be. So that's when I have to start reversing my wrist the wrong direction to force that look in the backswing. Closing the face in the takeaway does not guarantee you anything. In fact, it highly suggests that you're going to open it in the downswing, which is the wrong time. This club face has to open roughly 90 degrees in the backswing for everyone and close 90 degrees in the downswing for everyone. You can't just pin it and keep it. It doesn't work that way.
It's one of those things, again, that if you freeze frame the golfer, everyone's done it.
Right.
Stop it to take, the face is turned down. That must mean.
Right, no.
It doesn't really work like that always.
Because when you can measure, you can look at what the wrist is doing, and the wrist still has cup in it.
Yeah, and it ties in. And I mean, Scott Hamilton's one of our good friends and one of the best teachers I've ever been around. And he told me years ago, he said, "Yeah, man, you don't want to get that face pancaked on the way back because I always got to try to open it coming down."
Open it sometime, yep.
And the other thing they do, because you usually have to reverse roll your forearms to do it, it makes the club flop. And I was like, oh, that's cool, that's shallow. Well, not so cool, because most people that flop it late like that and pull on it, they tumble the club out over the top. So it's a domino effect here as far as what you're doing with the wrist, arm motion, and where the body goes, because it's going to affect how it transitions.
Right. So how you want to work on this, again, we're going to build on building block number 1, okay? But I'm going to only do a left hand only grip, because now it makes the club heavy and I can't manipulate it as easy, okay?
Great point.
So I'm going to get my setup, take my right hand off, I'm going to move my shoulder and try to feel like nothing changes here. Now it flattened maybe 2-3 degrees.
Yeah.
But it didn't bow, it didn't totally flatten 2 or 3 degrees. So if I do that from here, move my shoulder right there.
Yeah.
There's a little toe down, little small cup here. It's very soft and neutral, and it's where you see great golf played every week.
Another little wrinkle to that I started doing, I don't even know when I started doing it, but I have people take their index finger and stick it in that little snuff box, and then kind of feel it there. And for some reason, by putting that there, it keeps the finger on top, and it almost guarantees that goes back. It feels really awkward to twist that under. So
it's a great awareness thing. You can even stick a golf tee there. I've seen golfers do that.
Just something
put a little piece of tape on a golf tee,
so you can feel where that's going. And I remember too, the forearm is having some rotation to do this.
100%.
We're talking about the wrist, but if you keep your forearm rolled under with your elbow pointed at the ground, that forces you to do something awkward with your wrist. So there's a definite, it's not the whole arm like this.
It's not the whole arm.
You maintain your connection here with your arm and the body, but the forearm down here, the bottom of your forearm here rotates without, you don't have to do the whole arm, but that sets it kind of in line here, where we call it getting on the track. The rest of it's easy.
It's golf, right? So if we have an inside takeaway problem, we're going to try to do the opposite.
Reverse roll.
Reverse roll. So my shoulder didn't move, my forearm rolled the wrong way, my face is pancaked, but I'm not inside. Okay, but I swapped one set of issues for a whole new set of issues. Try to avoid extremes, right?
You just put it in the right
spot. If you're inside
spot.
takeaway, fix that without trying to do the opposite the other way. Because you may play okay for a week or two, but once you start doing the opposite, you're going to get a whole new set of problems.
It's like if you have a flat tire or flattish tire because it gets cold out, you know you're a tire. You don't inflate it to 100 psi.
Right.
You just put it where it's supposed to be.
Or if you have a problem overeating, right, pushing away from the table, the fix for overeating isn't to stop eating altogether, right?
Yeah, that won't work either.
Right, yeah, it may work for a few days. You won't be around long.
Learn the right movements, and we always talk about these golf schools that we have because we get see a lot of swings in a short period of time. You've got to slow down a little bit. If you just say, oh, I get it, I understand, and then make a full swing, you mentally getting it has nothing to do with you doing it.
Right, right.
So slow down a little bit, just make these movements, even if you have to chunk them up with just the body, and then add the club and arms, you'll start to ingrain this stuff.
Real quick, if you could use more consistency in your golf game, and that's one of the most asked questions golfers have when they come see us, we've got the video just for you. Click on the first link in the pinned comment or description below. We're going to send you our drill to help you shore up your consistency, be more consistent for your next round of golf. Just click on that link, tell us where to send it. Now let's get you back to the video. Now the final piece of the puzzle is how the wrist's set, okay?
Or don't set or unset.
Yeah, now this just like everything in the golf swing, this gets to be over and underdone. We're gonna show you kind of what to look for and put you right in the middle of the zone. Then you can customize it to fit you. So when I bow my lead wrist, it's very difficult to set the club.
The anatomy of the wrist won't let you do it. Yeah.
Okay, so what happens is, and it's chicken or the egg, any one of these things could have started first, but you're gonna usually see the results. So shoulder doesn't move, wrist is bowing. Now, to get this club up, that's not very playable. And I start hoisting it. What usually happens, because the club's heavy, is I'm almost underset as I go here. So what should be kind of a left arm parallel almost set is basically takeaway where the shaft's parallel, and it's a late, what do you call it, reverse set?
Yeah, sometimes they do it so much that the club is low and inside like this, it's less set than they had it addressed. They've set up like this and they've done this in the takeaway.
You'll see the hands way above the waist and the shaft's not parallel to the ground
almost
yet.
Like that right there. How do we fix it?
So the fix isn't to go womp,
I hate
do that. Okay,
I'm not a big fan of
again,
super
we're not
early
going to
set.
go to extremes.
Yeah.
So again, I love the snuff box thing.
Yeah.
So as I'm moving my shoulder, keeping my snuff box on top, I can feel the club start to work up. Okay, because from down the line view, you got to remember this is 3 dimensions, right? So if I just do one, okay, without the other, now the club starts to work through my hands. If I don't do that and I just keep going, it gets inside. So I start to add that up component as the club works up the plane.
That's a great point. And the other part that's good for, when you do that and move the shoulder, you're going to see a healthy amount of space here between your leg and your butt of your club. Like everyone's wanting that width, right? At that point, you see a lot of good players out here without this. If you move your shoulder incorrectly, it's very hard to get that width outside of your leg. So shoulder across, let the club set a little bit this way with your little snuff box drill. That'll get you in the right spot without bowing and undersetting.
Right. So again, that's not a lot. A few degrees.
It's not much,
but it's important, especially if you're used to kind of the hoisting. Okay, so tying all this together, and you can think about this in a couple different ways. So if I'm standing on a range and I'm hitting down range and Shaun comes up and we haven't seen each other in a while and he's going to come up and shake my hand, I would never shake his hand this way, right? I didn't move my shoulder. That wouldn't be very good. And I certainly wouldn't go inside and miss his hand. I would just turn around, move my shoulder, extend my arm, and I'm right there as a handshake, okay?
Exactly.
So from down the line, again, I wouldn't do this or this. I would just turn and shake his hand. That's as simple as it gets. Now, the same thing's gonna happen on the downswing through the ball, but if you can get your head wrapped around that, this is where the single arm takeaways really start to connect the dots. How's another good way? We do this all the time in lessons where we get a little momentum going.
Yeah, this is the one that stands the test of time pretty much. You know, we like to start people a little bit forward here, right? And pretend they're hitting like a backwards shot. So I got the TrackMan here, I don't want to hit it, but if I hit that ball going backwards this way, start it here, heel off the ground a little bit, heel down to get a little bit of stepping on the trail foot to get some shifting. And if I hit a backward shot, if I can get this in the right place, boom, it kind of gives that momentum, helps it go where it needs to go. As long as I'm moving my body correctly, that helps teach the wrist movements. And if you just let that continue to the top, oh, by the way, you get a pretty good backswing.
Pretty darn good. That's why these first 3 feet, we'll call it, from address to shaft parallel, I don't know how many feet that actually is. Feels like 3 feet.
Yeah.
It's so important because if you're off the rails there, the rest of the 3/4 of a second you have left is almost like recovery mode.
It's all recovery.
Rather than really building the momentum in the correct way. How you work on this is super important because this is where we see all the best intentions. We see a lot of guys come in, get in front of a mirror, I can make it work every time in front of a mirror, and the first time I go out and make my swing on the range, it's way different because now I've added speed and body turn to it. So how do we want to work on this?
So we need feedback. Very good piece of feedback is the live view camera.
It's incredible training prep.
So we have a coupon code AMG at liveviewsports.com. You can save some money and get a tripod with it too, I think, for free.
But each of you are going to have feedback in your pocket.
Yeah.
Probably what you're watching this video on is a great source of feedback.
Either set up your phone in a good spot down the line.
Let's talk about that. Set up to it here. We'll use that as our ball right here. So Shaun's going to hit towards the wall here behind him.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to put my camera right on his hand line, about hands height. Okay, we don't want the camera up here. We don't want it down by our ankles. We don't want it inside. We don't want it behind him. So right in front of his toe line, hands height. This is going to give you the best view of what it is you're actually doing.
Yeah, so film one from there. If you're lucky enough to have two cameras going at the same time.
Or an iPad.
Yeah, put an iPad face on, straight on, because what you're trying to do is, if you had a line drawn here, just outside your shoulder, you want to make sure you're moving off that line from face on and down the line, sticking this thing about in line with your hands here. If you can do that, you're using feedback to make sure you're doing things the right way. If you're just out there beating balls, think, oh, I comprehend this, I'm doing it. It's not the case.
Right, and give your brain clear signals. So we see a lot of golfers who will go and then check it, and the club's bouncing. Like, make it like it's a roller coaster, like that, and boom, that's where I want it. Then I'll check it on my phone. If that's not good, I'll make an adjustment. But give yourself clear feedback, right? There's no shortcutting learning a new movement.
Yeah, and what Mike said there is right. If you got on a roller coaster over at Universal Studios or something, it goes tick, 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 tick. So figure out, tick, 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 tick. Figure out those movements to stick the club there. And then eventually, just like everything else, I can do it faster now.
Right.
But trying to go fast just because you got the information in your head is a recipe to not change anything.
You can always put speed on top of a good movement. You cannot put a good movement on top of speed. So make the movement right first. Don't hunt for a feel. We can't tell you what this should feel like to you because we don't know what you're doing. Let the movement dictate what it should feel like. Then you're basing your feel, which are always going to change, in reality.
Yeah, your feel might be miles different than
Yes.
what I'm feeling because we both come from a different place with our golf swing.
Exactly right. Base your feels, anchor your feels in reality, and then you got something where the feels can always be upgraded to. But you need feedback. You need to go at a pace where you can make the movement. Then you just keep rinsing and repeating. That's the secret to improving your game.